Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. It is what day is it today? The 12th. Is it the 12th of March? I think it's the 12th of March.
Yes.
And I've totally forgotten the story that I was going to tell you today. It's just completely gone out of my head. But anyway, before we begin, I have my spirit guide, Gregel, who is standing to my right side. And we have Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Rosemary. I hear you have storms down in your area today, too.
We have major storms, and so we may cut off and come back on, and which is what's been happening for the last 10 minutes, which is why I've completely, totally forgotten the story. Give me a second, though. Why don't you tell us if there's anybody there while I think of... I had this story in my head, and it's just...
I can tell you what it is.
Can you?
Woman burn.
Thank you. Anyway.
Well, that's only because you told me before we were going on. And yes, people are logging in.
I did then. Thank goodness I did.
Well, you just had to do a quick switcheroo on your computers. I mean, you've been amazing.
Couldn't get the thing to work, and then I changed the machine, then I changed it to another machine, but here we are. And we're still celebrating, of course, women's International Women's something. What is it, Chris, actually?
Well, it's International Women's Day, but most everybody is trying to celebrate it the whole week.
Well, I mean, is there an International Men's Day? Because it would only be fair, right?
I do not know the answer to that.
I've got to find out. And I've also got to twitch excuse my hands and everything in the way. I just need to adjust. Who knows what? There. Is that better?
Well, it must be for you.
I think it is. There we are. That's it. Good. All right. So is there anybody there, Chris? Do we have anyone there?
Yes, people are just beginning to log in. We know
Great.
It always takes a minute or two.
Great. So, we're not going to begin the story yet. We'll give people a few more minutes. But yes, I do have a good story for you. And I don't remember if I've told this story before, but it's an extremely good story about two women who came into my life. One, I had a little more to do with than the other. The other was very brief, but nevertheless, they are women we should celebrate, and they are women who seemed, certainly from my perspective, to overcome terrible, terrible odds. And anyway, so let me think. What have I been doing today? Oh, yes, I've been talking to my grandson this morning. He's been explaining that the puppy doesn't like to poo in the rain. Every time they take him outside, he wants to come running back in again. Rain is not for him, apparently. But every time he goes to put in the house, they pick him up, and he's sort of getting really, really well trained. So he actually sits at the door now, but doesn't like the rain. I had a puppy who was just like that. My little Feather hated the rain, and I had to get my toe gently in her bottom to push her out there to do what she needed to do sometimes, because she really, really loved being cozy and loved luxury and did not like any harsh stuff whatsoever. She was a very pampered little girl. I don't know if you can hear the thunder now. I think we're getting some thunder here. The rain has been sort of coming down in droves, easing off just a little bit, but apparently we've got it for the next hour and a half. What's the weather like there, Chris? Because I know that you had an awful snowstorm, right, yesterday?
Well, we're in the middle of it. It started overnight. It started with rain that turned to ice, which turned to like a wet snow. And it's going to be going all day today. They've already got the plows out, and the wind's blowing quite ferociously. I think it's, obviously below freezing. But listen, I just Googled your question about, is there an International Men's Day?
Oh, did you?
And there is. It started fairly recently. It looks like 1999. And
Well, it is only fair.
actually, sorry, 1992.
Okay.
But they do
Do,
have it.
do you know when it is?
Yes, it's in November. Where did I see that? Might have to go back a page.
Well, that's okay. Sometime in November and
19th, November 19th.
November 19th. And we will try. It's sort of Christmas time and all that's sort of coming up around that time. So it makes you wonder, why do they choose these dates anyway? But we will try to pay attention, not wanting to be sexist in any way. We shall try and celebrate Men's Day and make it into Men's Week in sometime in November. So we'll try and do that. Last night, we did our show Cracking Up with my two friends Kay and Kay. We had a great time. If you missed that show, because it was at an odd time, we did it at 5 p.m. my time here, and I know a lot of you were working, a lot of you had to pick up kids from school, a lot of you had to you were getting dinner ready and all the rest of it, so it was an odd time. But you can find it if you'd like to go in there and find it and find out what we talked about, what a good time we had. You can find it, I think, on YouTube, right, Chris?
Yes, absolutely. I always consider YouTube your repository of all your videos.
It is. It is. So just put in Cracking Up, Kraking, Cracking Up, in YouTube, Rosemary Altea, of course, and you'll find us and you'll see we did talk. We got to be quite serious at one point, didn't we? We sort of had some great discussions, and the two Ks gave some fabulous advice. I think, Chris, you said to them, because they have such a wealth of experience between them. You did ask them at one point, did they have any advice for us? And they gave some great advice. I was, we were thrilled with that. And I think it's such a really great show, because how often do you get three old ladies? I'm much older than they are, by the way. Three old ladies, I don't. Do you know that? Do you know that little ditty, Chris? It's a very British thing. Three old ladies.
Only through you. I wouldn't have heard it on my own.
Oh dear, what can the matter be? Three old ladies locked in the lavatory. They were there from Monday to Saturday. Nobody knew they were there. And it goes on.
How sad.
So we were a little bit like the three old ladies, and also having fun. And there is a little aside to that, because growing up as a kid, I think every kid on the block knew that song. We'd all sing it. It was a funny song that we all used to sing, and we all, everybody knew it. And then when I was about, I'm going to say 11 or 12 or something, Eartha Kitt, the great Eartha Kitt, the great and fabulous and gorgeous and beautiful singer Eartha Kitt came to London, and she performed at the London Palladium. And Eartha Kitt had a song that was about Creole ladies with laughing eyes, softly whisper with tender sighs. I don't know if any of you know that song, but that's a great Eartha Kitt song. But remember, I was fascinated with her. I'd never seen anyone like her before. She seemed to be so exotic, and in fact she was and still is a fabulously exotic and beautiful and wonderful person. Anyway, so I was listening to this song, and I got it in my head, and then after the show and over the next few days, I'm singing this song, Creole ladies with laughing eyes, softly whisper. But I'd never heard of Creole ladies. We're British. We didn't know what Creoles were. So I certainly at my age didn't know what a Creole lady was. And I had mistaken, instead of singing Creole ladies, I was singing three old ladies with laughing eyes, because I associated it with the three old ladies locked in the lavatory. So 3 old ladies with laughing eyes softly whisper with tender sighs. And and here I am, and here are my friends. We are 3 old ladies, not Creole ladies, 3 old ladies with sparkling eyes. I'm not sure we have tender sighs. Well, I do have tender sighs for my grandson, and I have tender sighs for the puppy. But yeah, and I should not give myself a hard time. And I have tender sighs for my patients and so on and so forth. But anyway, I'm rambling on, and we're hoping we've got a few people now settled down and settled about. Are we ready for our story, Chris?
We are. I mean, we had a lot of comments from all of our pet owners with their dogs, basically saying the same thing as you. They don't want to go out in the rain. They're pampered, that sort of thing.
That's right.
Mark's on. Heath says, for a play on words, your cracking up can be addictive.
Oh, really? What does that mean?
When people are on crack drugs, they're addicted.
Oh, oh, no. In England, if you're cracking up, it means you're having so much fun and you're laughing. And if you see someone who's really laughing really, really hard, we say, look at her, she's cracking up. So we're not going to go the other way. I'm British. This is what we do. The three of us, the 3 girls who are on this show, we're all British. So that's how that's how we use that. And you see, I didn't even associate the two things. So we're not going to associate. Thank you for that. We appreciate that, but we're not going to associate with it. So we're going to just say cracking up means we're having fun. And I think we really did have fun yesterday. As I said, you can go to YouTube, write in my name, write in cracking up, K-R-A-K. K for K, R-A for me, K for K, cracking up. So that's what we're doing. All right. So Chris, do I need to know anything before I begin my story? Because after all, it is story time this morning.
No, I think you can go right into it.
Okay. So here we go. As all good stories must begin, as I tell my grandson, and I always told my daughter, once upon a time. So once upon a time, a I've just told you how such an old lady I am, a long time ago, when I was a kid. And I was probably 13 or something, 13 or 14. And I was old enough to have a paper round. And you had to, in England, certainly, you had to be a certain age to get a paper round. And the news agents that I worked for with this paper round was just across the street from where we lived, and I knew the people there, and they knew all of our family, and so they were always nice to us. And so having a paper round meant you were given a sack. Now, I was small. I was really tiny. I was barely 5 feet at that age, and very skinny. And it looked as if a really good wind would blow me over because I was as thin as a stick. And the owner of the news agents, doing me a big favor, gave me the biggest paper round of all. Which was very sought after by most kids, because although it was every single night, it was 5 nights a week, every single night you had to sort of haul this massive amount of newspapers around on your shoulder in this big giant sack. It did mean that at Christmas time, when you got gifts and people gave you tips and things like that, that I got more tips than anybody else. Quite right too, because I had to hold that sack every night. And I did this paper round for a good 2 or 3 years easily, until I started to work full time properly. Anyway, here I am, and the next to the newsagents was right next to it and attached to it was a huge shed, which was where they kept all the newspapers. And they would put the newspapers into different piles for different areas, different addresses, and so on. And we would all have to go in there, line up, and get our respective pile of newspapers. The woman who was in there, and she'd been in there forever, she'd been there, you know, sort of for so long. I think her name was Nancy. Now, isn't that weird? Because had somebody said to me what was her name, I wouldn't have remembered it. But her name actually was Nancy. And Nancy was that sort of person who was always in the shed. She always gave you newspapers. But Nancy was a burns victim. The story was, however this story was true or not, who knows, but the story was that she was involved in the Land Army during the war, and her truck somehow or another, the truck that she was in, got blown up. So when you looked at Nancy, as kids, I think we just accept things, don't we? We don't necessarily think that anything is awful, or we know that it's not usual. But looking at her, she had no nose. She had just, her eyes looked like just holes in her face. Her entire face was scarred and ravaged. She had no ears. And I remember on one occasion, she wore her hair, what there was of it, because it was very straggly, very thin, and she'd lost a lot of it. But what there was of it, she would sort of try to pull down over her ears. When I remember once waiting for the newspapers and looking and realizing that she actually didn't have any ears. Her ears had been burned off. So she was sort of, her face, her neck, everything was very, very severely ravaged, scarred, and you could barely, she looked, I suppose you could say that she looked a little bit like an alien. In those days, years ago, of course, they did not have the skin grafts, they didn't have the expertise that they do today, but she was just Nancy. Nobody ever, none of the kids anyway, none of the kids ever considered that there was anything other than it's Nancy. No one felt sorry for her. We were all kids again, as I say. You just got on with it. It was just part of what we were doing. It was part of the experience of life, and it was fine. And Nancy, although she was, you couldn't say she was cheerful, because you wouldn't have even known if she was smiling. Her hands also, when she sort of got the newspapers, she had a struggle with her hands, and she, you know, because her hands had been ravaged as well. So every day, day in and day out, you know, when you are with people like this, it just becomes the norm. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, but for us kids, it was the norm, and we just treated her like we would treat anybody else. And she was just Nancy. Then, of course, my paper round done. I'm not even sure how I hawked that sack around with me, because I was so tiny and so skinny, but I hawked that thing around. I sometimes had a really good friend of mine, Hazel Newman, who would bring a bike, and we'd sort of put the sack on the bike, and then we'd walk, and she'd walk with me around the to deliver the newspapers. But that certainly didn't happen every time. Anyway, here we are. So now we're going forward. So this is one woman, and I want you to it's hard to, you can't imagine. So I was going to say I want you to imagine, but it's hard to imagine how a woman like that could do that job every day, be faced with kids and people who are gawking, looking at her. So we kids, as I've said, it was the norm for us, but there were people outside, there were people who would look at her, and I'm sure it was very difficult for her. But what a brave, and courageous woman she was to even stand there and do that job. And it is Women's Week. So I want to, as I'm telling you this story, I'm thinking about honouring women that I have known. I didn't know Nancy other than that she just gave me the papers. I didn't know her personally. I didn't really know her story. Whether the story of her being blown up in a truck was true or not, I don't know, but that was the story that went around. But every single day, every night, she was there. She never missed. Every night, she was just Nancy giving us the papers. But when I think back, my goodness, how courageous that must have been for her, and how tough it must have been for her to actually have to face people with her face so ravaged and so destroyed. And she must have been, I believe, a really strong and a very brave and wonderful person. Now we're moving on. Now we go, years and years and years have now gone past. I'm married, I'm divorced, I'm this, I'm that. Anyway, here I am. And I'm probably now somewhere in my 40s, maybe mid-40s or something. And I go to London to visit a friend, and I'm staying overnight with this friend. And the reason I was staying with her was because I was telling her I had to go to a wedding and I needed an outfit. And she said, well, why don't you come and stay with me in London, and we can go and I can take you to some of these wonderful little boutiques that they have. So that's what we did. So here we are, and we're looking at all these little shops, and we go into a few of them, and they have, you know, some gorgeous stuff, a little bit expensive, but really nice. And then I open one door, and I have to go down 2 or 3 steps into this store, which is just filled with stuff, just filled with all kinds of wonderful outfits, and standing over in the far corner, there was a ladder, and on top of the ladder is who I presume is the owner of the shop, rightly so, as it turned out. But her back was to us, and so I walk in and I say hello, and she says, "Oh, hello, I'll be with you in a second," and that's okay. And then I'm standing there waiting for her, and then she turns around, and it's like looking at Nancy. She obviously was a burns victim, severely burned. And she must have been so used to people reacting. She must have had some horrible reactions. It would be perfectly natural for people to react because the sight was awful. It was beyond description. And so she turned around, and I know that she was expecting my reaction. I know that she was expecting me either to recoil or to turn my head away or something. But the amazing thing was that even though inside I was reacting, I was able to keep the smile on my face and smile at her. And I said, hello, I'm looking for an outfit for a wedding. And she looked at me, and she sort of was coming down the ladder, and she said, well, why don't you just look around? And I said, yeah, okay, that's fine. My friend, in the meantime, had left the shop because it was too hard for her to see this. Now, this lady came, she helped me, we chatted, we laughed, we had some fun, she showed me some of the stuff that she had. She never mentioned the situation. I never mentioned the situation. but I was already sort of, if you like, I'd already had this experience once. And although you don't, years and years later, you don't expect to walk into a very exclusive and beautiful gown shop and be faced with this awful sight. You don't expect it. Somehow or another, my experience with Nancy helped me to understand, you know, that this woman was brave enough to buy her own shop, stock her own shop, see all these beautiful creatures coming in and out of the shop, because it was an expensive shop, and I'm sure she got some very beautiful and very lovely women, beautifully dressed, etc., etc., beautiful makeup on, all the rest of it. How incredible that was that she could do this. How incredible was it that she was able to dare to face the world with all of her scars, with her severe disfigurement. How incredible was it that she was able to do this? And in this environment particularly, where of course we women want to look beautiful, don't we? We want to look our best, and there she is, helping us to look beautiful and helping us to look our best. What a strong woman. What an incredibly brave woman. A very ordinary person, just, you know, with an extraordinary willpower and extraordinary determination that she was going to open this shop and make it successful, despite her deformities, despite her disabilities, just as Nancy did in that paper shop all those many years before. It's an awful thing, but we as human beings, we do tend to make judgments on appearance, don't we? We do. If somebody doesn't fit in, if they are really fat, or if they are really thin, or if they, you know, if they have dark skin, or if they have, you know, whatever it is that it doesn't fit the norm, we as human beings, we do tend to judge. We do. We tend to judge if somebody's wearing a weird dress. We tend to judge. Which brings me to my final part of this story, and it's only because I said I was going to talk about two women, but I'm going to actually talk about three. And some of you have heard me tell this story before. Oh, by the way, I did buy an outfit, not because she was a burns victim, but because she had beautiful things, and I found just the outfit that I wanted. Anyway, that's moving on to my third part of this story. Some of you have heard this story before. I love this story. I love it for my own experience. So I was with a friend of mine, and we were in a department store in the very nice restaurant they had within the store. And it was really busy. It was Friday, it was lunchtime, and you got all the women from the bridge clubs and wherever they came from. This was in England, by the way. You got all these women who were meeting on Friday for lunch. It was sort of something that people did. And there were three ladies sitting at a table not far from where we were. And they were older. We're really into the old ladies thing, aren't we? And the three ladies too. Anyway, they were older. They were all wearing sort of tweed, very smart tweed sort of suits or jackets or what have you, hats, you know, what I call old lady hats. No offense to old ladies. I am an old lady, so no offense to old ladies, but I would never wear one of those hats. But anyway, they sort of had all their hats on, and they were very prim and proper, and they looked lovely and elegant and so on and so forth. And so I'm with my friend, and we're beginning to eat our lunch, and in through the door walks this lovely, amazing woman. Amazing. She's amazing. She must have been well into her 70s. She was wearing a dress. It was sort of pale, sort of purple, with around the bottom was a deeper purple. It was it was a beautiful dress, almost gossamer-like dress. She was wearing deep pink, very high heels to go with this dress. She was wearing plastic bangles all the way down her arms with pink and purple and all sort of those toned in colours. She had quite a bit of makeup on, and she looked, some would say, really, really ridiculous. She was dressing sort of way younger than her age. Some people would have said, what a spectacle. And in fact, my friend I was sitting having lunch with looked over and started tutting. Look at that. That's ridiculous. Look at it. She looks ridiculous, blah, 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 blah. And you could see everyone in the restaurant was looking at her. But when I looked at her, all I could do was smile. And all I could think was, yes, that's what I want to be when I'm an old lady. And there's this great poem, when I am an old lady, I will wear purple. And it's, anyway, and you must read it. So after this show, go Google, when I am an old lady, I will wear purple. And I think it's an anonymous, can't remember who wrote it anyway. But here is this woman, and she's so dressed up, so some would say inappropriate for her age, so well dressed up, and I'm just thinking how fabulous she's got these big pink earrings, big loopy earrings on, and she's screaming out. She's just screaming out because she looks so different. And that's it, isn't it? Different. So she gets her lunch, and I've noticed at this point the three ladies in their nice tweeds and elegant suits and so on. I've noticed them in their really weird hats. But anyway, I've noticed that they're looking at her and they're tutting and shrugging amongst themselves, and they obviously know her, and she obviously knows them, because she goes right up to their table, and there is a spare seat at that table, and she asks them, can I come and sit with you? And they say, no, go away, and they turn their backs on her. All I wanted to do was just pick her up and give her a hug. All I wanted to do was say to these old ladies, what is wrong with you? We don't appreciate different. We shy away from our perception of what is ugly, what is deformed. We shy away from anything that is weird or that we don't understand. As human beings, we can be so intolerant, can't we? And I just feel that this lovely lady, who I know must have been very lonely, because she was definitely an eccentric, definitely. I know that she must have been so lonely in so many ways, and to have been shunned in the middle of a restaurant by these three old biddies who are sitting there so full of their own importance and thinking, wearing their hats and thinking how good they looked. And they couldn't see beyond. They couldn't see beyond their own, who they were. And why couldn't she be normal? And why couldn't she wear decent clothes? And why did she have to make such a spectacle of herself? And what we're really saying is, why do people have to suppress themselves? I know when I walked into that shop with the lady with the burns, I will guarantee you that there were so many people who were so upset. Why does she have to flaunt it? Why does she have to make us see it? But the bravery of these women, the bravery to be themselves, to not fit in, to dare to not fit in, to dare to be different. And I relate to these women because when I was a kid, I was made to feel different, and I was. I was the weird kid. I was very different from my family, very different from my brothers and sisters, certainly very different from my mother, and always made to feel less, or always having people trying to make you feel less because you're not like them. And I do think that in the Western world, this Western world of ours, I think that we're not encouraged, are we? We are valued maybe a little less if we're different, if we don't conform. And there rise up the prejudices. And I do wish sometimes that we would take a leaf out of the Native American culture, because different was celebrated with them. If you were different, you were celebrated. If you were unusual, you were celebrated. And we, in our Western world, we look at the people who are different. Why can't she just hide in a cupboard? Why does she have to make us see that? Why can't he just be normal? Do you know how many times people have said to me, my parents, my mother, not so much my father, but my mother, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just be normal? You'll end up in the towers like your grandma because you are not normal. And I smile when I'm telling this story, because who on earth wants to be normal? I think the nicest people and the best people are those who are a little bit crazy. And I like to think of myself as a little bit crazy. And I think I decided many, many years ago, and maybe because I saw this woman in this restaurant who was so eccentric, that's what I want to be. When I get old, I want to be eccentric. I don't want necessarily people to like me. I just want to be, I'm going to be eccentric. I'm going to just be myself. And if people consider that that's eccentric, so be it. But that's who I'm going to be. So I guess the moral of this story is, when you're sitting there and you are looking at yourself and you're looking at the people around you, ask, am I happy? Would I be happier if I went out and danced on the street? And I can tell you that on many, many occasions, in the middle of a town or a city, if it takes my fancy, I will dance in the street. Why not? Oh, because it's not done? What is that? Well, it's done by me and done by my friends, who we all have a great time when we do that sort of thing. I know we know people are looking at us thinking that we're hooligans or some such, but we're not. We're just being ourselves. And so I'm telling every one of you out there, if you feel like singing in the middle of a storm, if you feel like dancing in the rain, if you feel like going into the supermarket and saying hello to everybody in the supermarket, which I have done, it's so freeing to be yourself. It's so freeing to just be you. Let's celebrate Women's Day, shall we? Or Women's Week, or whatever it is. Let's just be us, shall we? Let's be that eccentric and wonderful lady wearing that pinkish purplish thing. Let's be brave like this fabulous lady who opened her own dress shop, despite all the odds, and despite knowing that there are people who are going to be saying, how could she do that to us? Let's be brave like my lovely Nancy, who, when I was a kid, really, without me realizing it at the time, really, showed me that being brave is a good thing to be. We teach by example, and all of these three women gave me great examples. When I am an old lady, I will wear purple. Read that poem. It's a fantastic poem. I always feel that's, I am an old lady now. I don't feel like an old lady at all. But anyway, just be yourselves, everybody, and enjoy your lives. We only get to do it. This is not a rehearsal. Have you heard that phrase? It's not a rehearsal. So just be who you want to be. If you're in a job that really stinks and you really hate it, get another one. Don't put up with this nonsense any longer. Be yourself. Dare to be, dare to live, dare to do whatever it is you want to do. you'll find you may not make a fortune, but boy, oh boy, you'll be happy. The end. How are we doing there, Chris?
We're doing good. We have a lot of comments in the chat room. But I'm
Okay.
reminded of, as you tell this story, all the people that were different as kids. Look at some people brought joy, some people brought music, some people brought writing. You brought the spirit world. I mean, all these people that, were teased or shunned or made fun of in their youth usually turned out to be something that the world absolutely needed. The
Right.
greatest artist, the greatest musician, the greatest scientist, the greatest doctor, the greatest sports person. So yeah, be you. So Leslie says, during the story, she had typed in beautiful on the inside, and that she was always drawn to different. Cheryl says, being a burn survivor also, not as severe, but I still have scars. I have realized that I often see people looking at my scars, but those scars do not represent who I am inside. I have accepted my appearance and often forget my scars. I choose to just be the person I am on the inside, and people seem to forget the scars after a while.
I feel that we should, when we look at people like this, Cheryl, you're so brave to tell us this story, but you should wear those scars proudly. You earned them. You went through such trauma, such pain, and look how beautifully you turned out. And we should wear our scars. We should wear our differences. We shouldn't be ashamed or try to hide them or try to convince people that this is not us. Because I think, I'm going to say this to you, I think those scars are you. They show bravery. That's you. They show, I've told the story about the butterfly that came onto my shoulder one day, and it was so beautiful. It was such a beautiful thing. And then when I looked down, when it landed on me, it had this torn wing. And I heard Gregor say to me, not perfect, but yet still beautiful. And Sharon, none of us are perfect. You should see my scar. Bet my scars beat yours. I've got a big long... Fortunately or unfortunately or whatever it is, mine get covered with my clothes, but it's big, it's long, and it's thick because there are two scars, one next to each other. None of us is perfect, but I never think about my scars anymore. They don't cross my mind unless it starts to hurt a bit, but I see them as my battle scars. And that's what you're wearing. You're wearing battle scars, and you are a warrior, and you should be so proud that you have these scars. You should be so proud that you've overcome, because here you are and you have overcome. Chris.
Tracy says, such a lovely story. I don't look at people how they look. I look past that. Everybody is different, all shapes and sizes, everyone unique and beautiful. Yes. I wish people would just be kind.
As Gregor would say, our world needs gentleness. Boy, does it ever. Excuse me, I'm fiddling about here. Yes, carry on, Chris.
Mark said, my heart sank because I was an outcast for many years in my youth. I was different. I was a strange boy. I was always pegged, abused by schoolmates, and I didn't want to live, and prayed I didn't then.
Oh gosh. And now here you are. And I'm saying to you, yes, all right, we can say that you're different. I like to think that the women in the story I told, they're unique. They're different, but they're unique and should be treasured. And I think, you should be treasured for your uniqueness, and don't ever, ever, ever regret being different. I mean, look at me. Goodness, how crazy. I could have ended up like my grandmother in a psychiatric hospital. 100, 150 years ago, I would have been burned at the stake, I can assure you. I would have definitely been burned at the stake, thank goodness. That didn't happen. But there's nothing wrong with being different. There's everything right and unique and wonderful about being different. And I'm sitting here and I can tell you that although it was tough for me, as it was for you, I'm so pleased that I am unique. My gift is unique. I think I'm one of the most fortunate, the luckiest people on this earth. Chris, keep going.
Annika says, I am not a groupie either. I often just do my own thing. I love your stories and your wisdom.
Well, thank you. We love your comments.
Holly says, yes, let's be warriors and strong and treat people with love and fly and always embrace our differences.
Well, I am a warrior. That is my soul sign. I am a warrior soul. So, and I am. And luckily, my father was a warrior soul also. He was a soldier. He was a lifetime soldier. And he sort of would from time to time sort of say things that sort of really resonate with me and have helped me really through life. One of those, don't step on a battlefield unless either you're sure that you'll win or that the battle is worth it, win or lose, die or survive. Be careful. Choose your battles carefully, I suppose is what I'm saying. But my father always used to say, don't get on the battlefield unless you either can win or the fight is worth it and worth dying for. And he also used to say to me, sort of as we're talking about my daddy here, he used to say, to me, just remember, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And boy, oh boy, was that the best piece of advice. Really, the best piece of advice. Keep going, Chris.
Holly says, celebrating my women friends this past week by calling them and reuniting. Blessed to have so many wonderful women in my life.
Yes, me too. Absolutely, me too. If you didn't watch Cracking Up, you should go into YouTube at some point today and watch that, because those two women are two of my very closest friends, and just wonderful, wonderful people.
Mark says, before God, we are all equal. No greater, no lesser, all are equal.
Yes, but it's all, and I agree with you, Mark. I know what you're saying, but we have to live on this earth of ours, don't we? We have to deal with the judges, with the criticizers. We have to deal with the people who think that they're superior. We have to deal with the people who enjoy putting lesser mortals down, as they might think of some of us. We live in this earth, and we have to get through it. And yes, we're all equal, but I can tell you now that through my life, I have felt way less than equal on many occasions, and I know that many of you listening have felt the same. What I didn't realize at the time that I do now is that it's not that I'm superior, it is that I am simply unique, and I embrace it. And that's what I want all of you to do. Take a look at yourselves. You are simply unique. Embrace it.
Leslie says, I have a red scar on my nose, so my husband calls me Rudolph. And she's laughing at that.
Okay, then. You didn't tell us where you got it from. Did someone bump you on the nose? What was going on there? Again, a great battle scar.
Holly says, wouldn't life be boring without texture and differences in our lives?
Yes. It really would. It really, really would.
Rhonda says, like Mark, I was picked on when I was a child, but it taught me great compassion for others.
Yes. Well, I think this is it, isn't it? Adversity is our teacher. You know, you've all heard me say when the little old lady with no teeth came to one of our groups, if I could give you a gift for Christmas, she said, if I could give you a gift for Christmas, I would give you tears. I would give you pain. I would give you heartache. What kind of gift is that? The best gift in the world. Because those tears, that pain, and that heartache, they are our greatest teachers. And I think, you know, we have to remember that. I know that, you know, people are so worrying about what is going on with Russia, with the Ukraine. There's always something going on, isn't there? The COVID, what was it before that? Nile's disease or something. Anyway, or there's always something. But that's because there is always something going on. This is a world of, I don't know, busyness, and there are so many diseases and infections and so many creatures out there who could be harmful and so on. But it's always been the same. This world of ours has always been the same. I just think that because we are, and I think I mentioned this probably yesterday, we're such a pampered group, aren't we? This human race of ours, we're so pampered. We have everything good, and when things go wrong, it's so much harder to deal with the tears, with the heartache, with the pain. It's so much harder. It's so much more difficult to deal with all of that because we are truly. If you look at our life, very few of us, and certainly in the Western world, very few of us stand over a tub of laundry, breaking our backs having to do it. We've all got these wonderful machines. Oh, wait a minute, we turn that, we press that button, and off it goes. We are a pampered race. Everybody has a microwave. Sorry, even kids. A lot of kids, even at 8 and 10 years old, have their own cell phone. But it's catastrophe if the battery runs out, isn't it? So I think because we are so pampered, it makes it so much harder for us to deal with to deal with the pains and the heartaches and so on. And I'm not making light of it, and I'm not saying that people should toughen up. But I can assure you, when I was growing up, nobody had a therapist. I mean, nobody knew what one was anyway. Who had a therapist? My mother went into a carbon factory to work. My father was in the army fighting for king and country the whole time. Do you think that they had easy lives? And do you think that we would have all laughed our socks off, including my parents, if somebody had said, you need to go to therapy? We didn't have it. You got on with it. You dealt with it. And amazingly, even though it was tough, we did do that. We did get on with it. We did fix it. We did fix ourselves, and we dealt with our hardships. And in this world that we have now, where there's so much pampering and life is so much easier in so many ways, the minute we get hardships, we start to fall apart. And the politicians and the media do not help it. They encourage it. They encourage us to, they feed our fear for us. And I, for one, am not going to let other people dictate whether I'm smiling and happy or whether I'm sitting in misery and worrying. What are you going to worry about anyway? Can you do anything about changing anything? You can. It's called prayer. Don't underestimate the power of prayer, everybody. And if you got our newsletter this week, you'll see that I do write about that. And as Gregor would tell us, it takes but one small voice to rock this world. And if we all join our voices together, don't ever think you're not important enough. Don't ever think you're a nobody. Don't ever think that, other people have more influence than you do, because that's not so. Chris.
It's funny that you should mention the newsletter. Mark wrote, "Thank you for your beautiful email to your followers. It was so touching, so profound, and real. For those who haven't read her email, go find it and relish it."
Thank you, Mark. Yes, I liked it.
Sandra says we should all wear what brings us joy, no matter what the age. Purple it is.
Good for you. I like it.
Nancy says, I find myself being a warrior in this lifetime. I feel it is now time to move on to my next adventure.
Okay. You know, there are lots of adventures still to be had here on this earth, you know, just saying. Chris.
Holly says, loved cracking up. I could feel the close life friendship and caring among you. It was so
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes, we do. We thank you for that, Holly. I appreciate that. We do support each other, and it's funny because you know, I live so far away from them now, but we talk regularly. Very often, one of the K's will call me. It'll be like 2 in the morning for her, and she'll call me, and she'll because she knows that that's about the time when I'm settling down, and we can talk on the phone for an hour or two, and then my other Kay, I mean, she's got so much going on, and she's so much fun, and she's such an artistic person. She's written a couple of books. If you want to go to Amazon, her name is Kay Warburton. If you go and search Kay Warburton and her books, you'll see she's written a couple of small books that talk about her life, and it's so much fun. And she's done all the illustrations herself, and the illustrations are amazing. So, you know, you could check that out if you'd like.
I'm going to put Kay's name in the chat room so people can look her up.
Okay.
Mary wants to know, what is your favorite prayer?
Whatever comes to mind in the moment, and it depends. It depends where I am. It depends who I'm with. We have a healing prayer, which is, dear God, please allow us to join with you, to allow us to join our energy with yours, that healing energy with yours, to be a part of the healing work. And on that goes, and if you go to some of our healing videos, you'll find that that is a prayer. Might change slightly here and there, but that is a prayer that we use for healing. And the part about the prayer that I like the most, which is the most difficult for all of us, is dear God, I will to thy will. So you might go in there thinking you've got someone who needs a prayer. They need a job, for instance. So you pray to God, can you find them a job? Can you help them to get a job? Or you might find that you're, you know, you have someone who's sick, so you might pray for them to get better. I try very hard not to do that, because I know that God knows better than I do what is necessary for that person. And if that person, if it's necessary for them to, you know, sort of battle or to find a job for themselves, I'll pray for, you know, peace of mind and peace for the world and so on. But there are times you just have to hand it over to God, and healing is one of those times. I might think that, you know, this person doesn't deserve to die. How many times have we heard that? And what we're doing, if we pray for them to, you know, to get better, we don't know, because we don't know the bigger scheme, the bigger story. We might be praying for them to not have that next experience and not go on that next journey. So I always make sure that I say, dear God, I will to thy will, because hey, he knows way better than I do.
All right, I have 2 more comments and then we're at time.
Okay.
Judith says, the political folks give us so much because they want our votes. Isn't that buying votes? And then Annika says, you are so right. Our younger generation in the Western world are quite pampered. I am of the older generation where everything was simpler and maybe more of a challenge.
But don't you think it was worth the challenge? Because with challenges comes wisdom. And you can't buy wisdom. There's no store. Let me just be clear. You can't go to Amazon and say, I'll have a pound of wisdom, please. You can't. There's some things that you cannot buy. You cannot buy true friendships. You cannot buy love. You cannot buy wisdom. Wisdom comes with experience. And I don't think let's not bash the younger generation, because I hear this from people of all ages. you know, what am I going to do? And it's so awful. And now it's the war, and let's worry about the war, and so on and so forth. And there's some things that, yes, they're awful, but you can't do anything other than hand it over to God. You say your prayers, you ask God for whatever he feels is necessary. And then you hand it over, and that's all you can do. And then you've got to live your life. And you've got to make your own life the best that you can possibly make it. I think, are we at time, Chris?
We are.
Well, so that's it then. I hope you enjoy my story today, my 3 stories in one, actually. Just remember, when I'm an old lady, I'm talking about me now, when I'm an old lady, because I still can't see it. But anyway, when I'm an old lady, I will absolutely wear purple. In other words, I'll wear what I please. I'll wear anything. Well, I do that anyway. Wait a minute, I've been doing that for a long time. I don't need to be old to do it, do I? You don't need to be old to do it. So, thank you all for watching. I'd like to say thank you, especially to Grey Eagle, because he's laughing at me here. We're having a lot of fun. I'd like to say thanks to Chris, of course, as always, for a great job done. And to all of you who join and to all of your comments, we love hearing from you. So what I'd like you to do, starting now, is wear purple. You know what I mean. Don't have to actually wear purple, but be different. Embrace the differences. Embrace the uniqueness of who you are. Until I see you again, which will be next Thursday, I think. Oh, wait a minute. We might be doing an off the cuff sometime or another, maybe. Don't forget to change the clocks back, all of you in our part of the world, tonight, because I want to wish my daddy a happy birthday, because it's his birthday tomorrow, the 13th of March. And St. Patrick's Day is coming up, everybody. That's my sister's birthday. St. Paddy's Day is on the 17th, which will be the middle of the week. So you've got lots to enjoy. We might do something for St. Patrick's Day. What about it, Chris? What do you think? I could dress up as a little elf or a little gnome or something. I don't know. A leprechaun. Sorry.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, would you now? Yeah, well, it's not going to happen, really. Just kidding. So until we see you again, keep checking our website, will you? If you have any questions, if you need anything, if you'd like a consultation, you want to know more about the books that we do, blah, blah, all that stuff, email us, Chris, K-R-I-S, at rosemaryaltea.com, or you can just write to me, Rosemary, at rosemaryaltea.com. It all goes to Chris anyway. So, so until we see you again, please, 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 everybody, have a very blessed rest of the day, and have a very blessed weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.